you not recognize me? I'm disappointed. Try harder. I'm the first woman allowed to argue before the Supreme Court. Still, blank stares. That won't do. I'm Belva Lockwood, the first woman to run for the United States President. Twice, actually. Pity. I've been forgotten. I promise you I'm not a ghost. I'm very much alive and the busiest trial lawyer in Washington, D.C. Belva Ann Lockwood? Oh. Aren't I a fitting subject for a historical painting? Frank Carpenter thought so. He was the Washington correspondent for the Cleveland Leader. He described me 30 years ago in glowing detail. I have the original clip. I mean, most of my official documents wound up pulped or given to the Salvation Army as scrap, but I saved this one. Ah, yes. A slim, tight-skinned woman on the shady side of middle age in elegant blue-black velvet trimmed with cream lace. She looks as though she stepped out of an old portrait. I told you. Her face is well powdered, her silky gray hair combed over 2 rolls at the sides and tied in a knot behind the crown. But I'm not just a pretty face, right? Wrinkles are forming around her eyes, but she has a pleasant expression and a distinguished air. She speaks in a loud, grim, nasally tone, chopping her sentences into 5-word sections as she goes along. Well, not always. She is the chief woman lawyer in Washington. Remember me now? Not yet. She has plenty to do. Strong and healthy despite her years, she can make 10 miles an hour on the tricycle she rides daily. Yes, while the other lawyers went on a 1-horse tram, I surprised Washington in 1881 by acquiring my own adult tricycle, the English Challenger number 2. It was a safe modification from the dangerous high-wheeler. It kept my skirt down and got me where I needed to go. I was a reformer, a trailblazer. Watch. Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to try? It takes strong legs. I owe mine to the regular use of Caroline Bleacher's calisthenics. That's Greek for strength and beauty. Stenos and kenos. Here. I'll leave this as a gift. I was reserving it for some hero or speaker or leader. Someone who fought for the good cause, the great idea. Some disputer of conspirators, or some darling rebel, but I see now what I was reserving belongs to you just as much as to any. Those aren't my words. I wish they were. Walt Whitman wrote them. Do you remember him? Yes, well now that he's gone, you could run for president and talk like me. You could be emancipated, join the crowd in the city bristling with women on the go. Sir, I'm not finished talking. Are you paying attention? If you try to leave again, I will issue you a writ of me exit and you will be sitting here indefinitely. Sit up straight, pay attention. I am dead serious. Sir, if you have something better to go do, please go do it. I shan't be offended. Shan't. I first learned to use that word when I was in England. When I returned, I tried to use it in court and almost lost the case. My client was a married woman who had shot an officer and testified on how she committed the crime. Afterwards, I arose to greet the court. Gentlemen of the jury, the law must be enforced. My client committed the double offense of resisting an officer and shooting the man, but the District of Columbia is under common law, which requires a woman to obey her husband. Her husband told her to load the gun and shoot the first constable that came into the house. Gentlemen, you shan't have a woman disobey her husband. Despite the look on the judge's face, the jury came back with a verdict of not guilty. Yes, they did. I do love to open locked doors, don't you? Let's see what the newspaper says about me today. Mrs. Belva Lockwood, the first admitted to practice before the Supreme Court, a pioneer in the women's suffrage movement, and the only woman ever an official candidate for the President of the United States. Exactly. Victoria Woodhull was never an official candidate. She declared herself a candidate in 1872, but spent the whole election week in jail because she had written an expose on the Reverend Henry Ward Bleacher of Brooklyn Plymouth Church. It was considered obscene, so her party disintegrated. She had no votes. I did. Belva Lockwood died in Washington today in her 86th year. Mrs. Lockwood won several famous legal battles, notably that of the Cherokee Indians against the United States government. She secured a settlement of $5 million for the Indians. Yes. Several years ago, Andrew Carnegie was asked to aid Mrs. Lockwood financially. A delegation of Washington citizens sought him as Mrs. Lockwood, at the age of 84, was disposed from her home and her belongings by a ruling of the District Supreme Court. I lost my fortune to an unscrupulous admirer and forced out of my home. My bank account was exhausted. I trusted him, and now I, who argued before the Supreme Court and ran for president, must now beg for bread. Let this be my last lesson. Justice must not only be preached in the courts, but practiced in the hearts of men. Never mind the paper. I'll tell you exactly what happened in propria persona, in my words, exactly how it happened. I got a telegram from Clara Fultz and Moretta Stowe in the West, and it said that the Equal Rights Party had nominated me as its presidential candidate of 1884. They were playing a joke on me because the Equal Rights Party consisted of two people, Clara and Marietta. But I accepted the nomination, much to the dismay of my two nominators. I thought it was about time women had their own party, their own nominees, their own platform. If we want equal rights, we must take them. If we want to be respected, we must command it. So, after Clara had explained to me it was all in jest, I promptly launched my campaign and chose Marietta as my running mate. I mean, there were only 10,500,000 male voters in the country and 12,500,000 female taxpayers. Yet the country was supposed to be ruled by the majority. Women shan't be regulated to the cradle or the kitchen any longer. The full-fledged American woman stands ready at the workplace, the pulpit, the form and demands equal protection from the Constitution and equal justice from the law. Yeah, the press wasn't kind to me. They called me the plumed lady, and my campaign the most laughable masquerade they'd ever witnessed. Mother Hubbard clubs and broom brigades organized parades of men dressed in striped stockings and pick bonnets. They went through the streets just singing and brandishing their brooms to sweep out corruption. But despite their frivolity, I remained intensely serious. I predicted that the old political parties would die of inanition when women made their final march to victory. Alas, the suffrage leaders of that time, including Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, Abigail Duniway, all disapproved of my nomination as undermining the movement because I brought them in the light of ridicule and diverting precious money, resources. I was snubbed, frozen out. Anthony accused me of face painting and hair dyeing, and writing the worst one, riding a bicycle. Huh. No. Well, I was partially motivated by vanity and by the opportunity to expand my law practice. I was very well aware that I would run into clients who were in need of a Washington lawyer whose main thing was governmental claims. And I would get offers for lectures, $100 a night at the Slayton Lyceum of Chicago. But I also knew that I was making the first practical move in women's suffrage history. I was opening a door that would not be closed ever again. Women in politics are here to stay. If you plan to run for president, keep it brief so the newspapers publish you and the people read you. My platform was straightforward. I pledge to promote equal political privilege to all of our citizens, regardless of sex, race, or nationality, and return our country to what it has long been in name, land of the free and home of the brave. I will appoint a reasonable number of women into positions such as district attorneys, federal judges, and marshals, including a competent woman should there be a vacancy in the Supreme Court bench. I will also plan to extend our relations with foreign countries while supporting our own American industries. Think of it. I won 4,149 votes, plus the half of the Electoral College in Oregon, and a large number of votes in Pennsylvania, which were dumped in the waste bin because they were considered false votes. I even petitioned Congress to count Indiana for me on the grounds that Indiana had switched its vote from Grover Cleveland to myself, which it had a complete legal right to do so. But that amounted to nothing. I was not satisfied with the vote counting. See, in America in 1884, we had not yet adopted the Australian ballot, which had all of the candidates written on a single form. No. The American system, which dated back to the Republic, required that each political party in a state to issue ballots that contained the names of the party's slate and the electors pledged to them. A supporter cast his vote by depositing his ballot into his party-chosen box. Only some of the states required that the voters sign the back of their ballots. But the overall allocation of these boxes and ballots was not controlled by polling place officials, stuffing the box was possible. And it was also possible that the officials who were in charge of this box would discount or destroy the ballots. And that's precisely what happened. I asked that the members of Congress please not receive the electoral returns of the New York State, or count them for the alleged majority candidate, for had the 1,136 votes which had been polled for me been counted for me and not Grover Cleveland, he would not have been awarded the majority candidate of that election in said state. Cleveland's margin of votes in New York was 1,149. I hope to derail Cleveland's victory and keep him from becoming the first Democratic president since James Buchanan in 1856, but I failed. The legislators ignored my petition, and on February 11th, Congress had certified the election of the New York governor, Grover Cleveland, as the 22nd president of the United States. You, sir, would you have counted my votes? Would you have written your name on the back of the ballot for me, knowing it had been burned? All right, let's have a show of hands. How many of you would have voted for Belva Lockwood? Come on. Thank you. They certified Cleveland, but I certify you. You who vote, you who remember, you who can ride. Well, in 1888, I was nominated again by the Equal Party Rights Act to be its candidate for the presidency with Alfred Love, who is the president of the Universal Peace Union, as my vice presidential nominee. I received fewer votes that year than I did in this one, so I turned my attention to international affairs and the peace movement, not to mention the ever-flourishing law practice of mine, without abandoning the universal suffrage and women's rights. I assisted in the passing of DC's Women's Private Property Rights Statute, secured the placement of matrons in city jails and police departments, and settled the legal state of paranoia. Quite a lot for a woman who grew up in upstate New York. Royalton. I mean, look it up. I mean, it was plank roads, stone fences, drywall for the most part. Most of the houses had whittled shingles. Cows with oars that were filled with milk, and grease mills, taverns, blacksmith shops, hominy, hog, venison, plus an occasional visit to Lockport for fancy gear, and get up from the clothing emporium. I learned grammar, geography, algebra, and logic at the local county one-room school with really hard benches. From a child, the bent of my mind was one of extreme practicality. I prized only knowledge which I could immediately turn into an account in everyday life, and I have been undaunted in my pursuit of said knowledge. My single thought was to do those things in which the nature of human affairs seemed the things to be done, and to do them in the best and expeditious manner. But I constantly ran into difficulties. Sir, are you paying attention? Shall I continue? Thank you. At about 10 years of age, I read the entire Bible. But as a kid does, I believed the whole thing to be truth. I suppose that just faith was necessary to reenact the miracles of the scripture. Believing I had that faith, or might have some of it, I undertook to perform one of these miracles without notifying anybody about my intention. For this experiment, I picked a milk pond that was right by my father's house. I proceeded to the edge of the pond, and summoning up the courage, or faith, as I've thought, I imitated the example of the great apostle Peter. To my surprise and discomfiture, my feet went right through into the sandy bed below, resulting in sadly wetting my pantlets and skirt and the garments that were worn by little country girls at the time, and a scolding from my mother. That somewhat shook my belief in my abilities, or else in my understanding of the word faith. I had not yet learned the scripture was largely allegorical, and I had not yet been taught either that only a man could be anointed a priest of God. But still, this failure did not materially dampen my hope, nor my ardor. Continuity was also a characteristic of mine. My next effort was to raise the dead. Oh, where's my line? For this purpose, I selected a neighbor burying ground and the child of a neighbor that had been interred. Remembering my former failure, I now assumed a more serious frame of mind and endeavored to accomplish the performance of my second miracle with a whisper. But the grave did not open, and the dead did not come forth, and my self-esteem received another severe shock. I attributed these failures either to a want of sufficient understanding or sufficient concentration, and still supposed I should someday be able to accomplish these miracles. I dwelt on the promise, if ye have faith even as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto that mountain, remove hence, and it shall be removed. That was scary. I concluded that if an ordinary mortal could remove by his willpower a mountain, then, child as I was, I certainly could move a hill, and so wrought my mind up to attempt the third miracle. I bet you could do it. Determined to succeed, I selected a small hill and concentrated all my willpower upon it. But the hill didn't move. I lost my confidence in myself, but none in the efficiency of the scripture, and for a time I abandoned my efforts to accomplish feats so much beyond my ability. Just for reference now, at this point, I am not memorized. Just putting it out there. Have I looked at this section? Not really. So, onwards we go.
There you go.
go from here, I guess. That was scary. I concluded that if an ordinary mortal could remove by his willpower a mountain, then a child as I was could certainly move a hill. And so brought up my mind up to attempt the third miracle. I bet you could do it. Determined to succeed, I selected a small hill and concentrated all my willpower upon it. But the hill didn't move. I lost confidence in myself, but none in the efficiency of the scripture, and for a time I abandoned my efforts to accomplish feats so much beyond my ability. Maybe I'll put my shoes back on at that point. I lost confidence in myself, but none in the efficiency of the scripture. And for a time, I abandoned my efforts to accomplish feats that were much beyond my ability. Oh. Since then, I learned how to remove a mountain and removed several. It has been accomplished by willpower and mental effort, combined with indefatigable labor, whatever that means. See, this is why I can't read it, because then it's just awful. Okay. I feel like I should do something with the lamppost now. I have not raised the dead, but I have awakened the living, and I have not been able to walk on water. The progressive spirit of this age may soon accomplish this feat. The general effect of attempting things beyond us, even though we fail, is to liberalize the mind. I'm quite used to educating and entertaining audiences. I did it for 8 years, my national lecture tours. The public thinks for itself now. Thirsts for information. Please, take notes if you'd like. I don't like to repeat myself. Oh, I forgot something. I am ever poised to advertise myself and never lost the habit of soliciting business. Yes, soliciting business. Where are the frickin' my business cards? Here's one. These handbills include a portrait of me in a black brocaded silk dress, cameo brooch, and gold watch chain with a bouquet of goldenrod attached to the dress. I never wore men's clothing. If you have a claim against... Huh? Oh, I'm supposed to put it around the stage. If you have claims against the government, I will do what I can to defend you. Aha. You're recording the whole process.
I love it.
Now, here come the highlighters, folks. This is my speech. Okay. Stand by your guns and resist every encroachment on your liberties. Beware any spirit of tyranny and oppression, always ready to inflict some further torture. Speak up when it's none of your business to do so. That's precisely the time that you ought to speak up. I want a women's political party and term limits for senators. We cannot stop fighting until legislation is passed to secure equal rights for all Americans, regardless of race, color, or sex, no matter what ridicule and humiliation we suffer doing so. What we need in this age is the same culture for boys and girls. Keep raising the issue, pester them to death. I like unpopular subjects. I seek notoriety, income, challenge, not to mention good health, which I still have. Can you blame me? Do not be overmuch appalled at the idea of a possible lady president in some distant future. I have a soft spot for female monarchs. But what could a simple country girl do against the prejudices of centuries? There was only one avenue up to her, the one open to her, the one for which the American girl had been educated all the years in the past century. Marriage. To the ordinary woman, marriage is the end of her personality, or of her individuality of thought and action. Forever after she is known by her husband's name, takes his stand in society, receives only his friends, is represented by him, and becomes a sort of domestic nonentity, reflective of anything, her husband's religious, moral, and political views, and rising or falling in the world as his star shall go up or down. It says mine's rage. Don't know how that fits, but I'll figure that out. Here goes my version. Go up or down. That is based on the English principle of coverture. Are you familiar with it? Femme covert versus femme sole. A married woman is covered by her husband, while a single woman retains personal rights and obligations. The daughter of a poor farmer, I followed the same well-trodden road, and was soon united in marriage to a promising young farmer of the neighborhood. Yet I directly adopted the unwomanly habit of pursuing my studies after marriage, writing these for literary gatherings and sometimes for public press. Here we go. A babe soon gladdened my household, but my married life was short as my husband died of consumption during the 5th year, leaving me to make my way in the world. Not yet 23 years of age, a mother and a widow with poor parents, with not even a liberal education for support, the outlook was gloomy. Gathering together my little means, I began to attend school again. In a neighboring, I began to attend school again in the neighboring academy to fit myself for some employment rather, whereby I would earn a livelihood for myself and a child. Here I was reminded that a married woman was not supposed to attend school. Even though widowed, it was unheard of and an unusual thing. What did I expect to make of myself? But I kept on my course and completed my academic term. I even had the hardihood to ask the trustees of the privilege of teaching the winter school in my neighborhood, but was promptly told the trustees had determined to employ a man for the winter months, though when he was dismissed after one semester, the trustees begged me to return. Wages I now earn made me contemplate taking a course in upstate New York, then open to young men and women on the same terms. I put this resolve to force in the autumn of 1854, the year of Kansas-Nebraska Act, and was passed that enraged anti-slavery Northerners and brought about the emergence of new Republic Party. After much mending of a scanty wardrobe, my trunk was packed for the September term of the school. With 2 young companions, I overtook the journey about 60 miles from home. We arrived just as the shades of night were gathering over the seminary. I devoted myself zealously to the work. I'm supposed to get off. I devoted myself zealously to the return work of school, while the young men were prepared for Gency College, then connected with the seminary. When I learned the trustees of this college had already opened its doors to 2 women, it was an opportunity I could not afford to lose. At the conclusion of the first term in the seminary, I offered myself to the Gency College Board for examination and matriculation in the freshman class. The president of the college did not smile upon my request. You don't expect to complete the course. I intend to graduate with honors, which I did in June 27th, 1857, the year the bachelor president from Pennsylvania office and his niece assumed the role of First Lady. Do you remember his name? James Buchanan Jr. Write it down. I might ask for it again later. What time is it?